let's talk about those weird little health mysteries that so many of us just put up with. The sudden leg cramps at night, that annoying eye twitch that won't go away, and of course, the classic 3 a.m. wake-up call. What if these aren't just random glitches? What if they're actually a really clear signal your body is trying to send you? Well, today, we're going to decode that signal. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're in a deep sleep, everything's fine, and then, boom, your eyes just pop open, wide awake. You look at the clock, yep, it's 3 a.m. The house is quiet, but your mind is just on. And for no good reason. It's not like you're super stressed about something specific, but sleep, it's just gone. Sound familiar? And it's not always about sleep, is it? For some of you, it might be that sudden, sharp leg cramp that just yanks you right out of a dream. Or how about that relentless eye twitch that only seems to show up when you have a busy week at work? We just kind of brush these things off thinking, oh, it's just one of those things. But what if they're all connected? What if they're all pieces of the exact same puzzle? Okay, so here is the big idea. These are not random system errors. Your body is this incredibly smart machine, and when something's off, it tries to tell you. These little symptoms, they're the signals, and it's about time we learned how to actually listen to what they're saying.
So, let's start decoding. We're going to jump right in and get to the root of what your body is trying to tell you with these little warning signs.
A lot of the time, the message is actually surprisingly simple. Your body is probably just running low on a super important mineral. It's #1 all-natural relaxation tool. You can think of it like your body's own built-in chill pill, and that mineral is magnesium.
All right, let's dig into exactly how this one mineral, this relaxation mineral, can have such a huge effect on everything from how well you sleep to how stressed you feel during the day. And this is where the scale of the problem really hits you. If you're having these symptoms, you are so far from being alone. Some estimates suggest that a staggering 70%, 70, of the population isn't getting enough of this mineral. That means the majority of us could be running on empty. So if you remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. The best way to think about magnesium is as the natural brake pedal for your nervous system. You've got all this stuff in your life: work, stress, caffeine, hitting the gas, revving you up. Magnesium is what lets your system gently slow down, relax, and just find its balance again. And this chart just makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? Stress is the gas pedal. It burns through your energy, it amps up anxiety, and it makes all your muscles tense up. Magnesium is the brake pedal. It restores balance, it promotes a sense of calm, and this is the big one, it lets those muscles finally relax. If you don't have enough brake pedal, you're just redlining the engine all day long, and that leads straight to burnout. Okay, so theory is great, but let's see how this all plays out in the real world. I want to share a quick story that I think is going to sound really familiar to a lot of you. Let's think about someone we'll call Sarah. She's a project manager in Chicago, dealing with the usual stuff: long hours, crazy deadlines, and she tried everything to fix her terrible sleep and that constant anxious feeling. She cut out coffee in the afternoon, she was using meditation apps, you name it. But nothing was fixing the core problem: that low-grade anxiety, that super annoying twitch in her eyelid, and just night after night of restless, awful sleep. Sarah's journey is basically a perfect roadmap for us. So first was the signal. She finally stopped ignoring the anxiety, the twitching, the bad sleep. That led to the insight. She realized these weren't just signs of stress she had to live with, they were classic symptoms of a magnesium deficiency. And that led to action. She did a little research, found the right type of magnesium for her issues, and started to adjust her diet. And the result? Deeper sleep, a calmer mind, and that amazing feeling of just being back in balance. So how can you follow that same path? This brings us to the most practical part of our chat today: how to build your very own magnesium action plan. Anyone who's ever stood in the supplement aisle at the store knows how crazy confusing it can be. There are like a dozen different kinds of magnesium: citrate, glycinate, threonate. What's the difference? Don't worry, we're about to cut right through all that confusion and make this super simple. Okay, this is where you can get really specific. If anxiety, stress, or that 3 a.m. wake-up call is your main problem, magnesium glycinate is usually your best bet. It's bound to the calming amino acid glycine, which makes it really easy for your body to absorb, and it's gentle on your stomach, perfect for taking in the evening. Now, for brain health and focus, threonate is really unique. It can actually get past the blood-brain barrier. Taurate is fantastic for heart health, and if you're dealing with constipation, citrate is super effective because it basically draws water into your intestines to get things moving. See? It's all about matching the right tool to the right job. And of course, supplements are great, but they're not the only way.
A food-first approach is always the best foundation. So before you even think about a supplement, think about adding magnesium-rich foods to your diet. I'm talking leafy greens like spinach, nuts and seeds like almonds and pumpkin seeds, even a little bit of high-quality dark chocolate. These are all amazing ways to naturally boost your levels. So as we start to wrap this up, let's just land on this one simple but really powerful idea. The journey to feeling calm and rested and balanced, it doesn't always need some crazy, complicated solution. Sometimes it's as simple as putting back a fundamental building block that your body has been missing all along.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of the big takeaways. Number 1, those annoying little symptoms, they're not random, they're important signals. Number 2, remember magnesium as the brake pedal for your nervous system. Number 3, you can pick a specific form to target your specific needs. And maybe most importantly, the first and most powerful step you can take is to just start listening to your body.
And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with, a question for you to think about. After hearing all this, what signals do you now realize your body might have been trying to send you? And finally, as always, a really important reminder. The information we've talked about here is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be medical advice. Please always talk to a qualified healthcare provider before you start any new supplement or make any changes to your health routine.
All right, quick reset. Blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
All right, let's talk about vitamin D. We all know it, right? It's the famous sunshine vitamin. So many of us take it for our bones, our immune system, even our mood. It's pretty much seen as this undeniable hero in the wellness world. But what if I told you that there's a critical piece of the puzzle that if it's missing could actually turn this hero into a potential problem? Let's dive in and uncover the truth about how to supplement safely. Yeah, I know that's a pretty bold question, right? But the science is starting to suggest that taking vitamin D all by itself might not be the whole story, or even the safest one. We really need to look at this phenomenon that could be sending a super important mineral to all the wrong places in your body. Okay, so let's get right into it and pull back the curtain on this hidden risk. We're about to see what happens when this incredibly popular supplement is taken all on its own, and why that might not be giving you the health benefits you're actually hoping for. First off, let's just get on the same page about why vitamin D is so popular in the first place. I mean, it's the sunshine vitamin. It's absolutely crucial for strong bones, a tough immune system, and even for boosting our mood. And maybe its most famous job is helping us absorb calcium. Nobody's arguing with these benefits. They're totally legit and well established. But here's the catch. Vitamin D, it's a team player. Its main job is to get calcium into your bloodstream, which is fantastic. But its job kind of stops there. It doesn't tell that calcium where to go next. And that, right there, is where our story really begins. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept called the calcium paradox. This is the core idea we're talking about today. And it perfectly explains how something good, like calcium, can end up in a very, very bad place. So here's the bottom line. The calcium paradox is basically a situation where your body has plenty of calcium, but instead of going to your bones to make them strong, it's getting deposited in your arteries, making them hard and stiff. And at the exact same time, your bones are being starved of that calcium, which can make them weak. It's the worst of both worlds. So how does this actually happen? Well, it's a pretty simple two-step problem. First, you take your vitamin D, and it does its job perfectly. It pulls lots of calcium into your blood. Great. But then comes step 2. Without a guide, that calcium is just left to wander around, and it can start to build up as plaque in your arteries and other soft tissues where it just doesn't belong. This quote just nails it. Without this one key nutrient, and we're about to talk all about it, the body ends up with this really dangerous combination: osteoporosis, because the bones aren't getting calcium, and atherosclerosis, which is just a fancy word for hardened arteries, because that's where all the calcium's going instead. So, who is the missing hero in this story? The nutrient that solves this whole paradox? Well, let me introduce you to vitamin K2, which I love to call calcium's very own traffic cop. Seriously, think about it like this. If vitamin D is the delivery truck that drops off a big shipment of calcium into your bloodstream, vitamin K2 is the traffic director on the ground, waving its arms, blowing a whistle, and telling every last bit of that calcium exactly where to go. It's pointing and saying, "Bones, over here," And arteries, you stay clear. And how does it do this? It's not magic, it's just pure biochemistry. Vitamin K2 basically turns on two really important proteins. First, it activates something called osteocalcin, which acts like glue, sticking calcium directly onto your bones. And second, it activates matrix glycoprotein, or MGP, which is this powerful little protector that actively stops calcium from building up on your artery walls. The difference K2 makes is just, well, it's night and day. Without K2, you're looking at calcium building up in your arteries, weaker bones, and increased cardiovascular risk. But when you add K2 into the mix, the whole picture just flips. Calcium goes where it's supposed to, your bones get stronger, and your heart and arteries are protected. Now, it's super important to know that not all vitamin K is the same. There's vitamin K1, which you get from leafy greens, and it's mostly used for blood clotting. But then there's vitamin K2, and that's the one we're really focused on for bone and heart health, because it's the one that acts as that calcium traffic cop. And as we're about to see, one form of K2 is way more effective. So you see, this isn't about choosing D3 or K2. It's about taking D3 and K2. They work together. Think of them as partners in a biological dance. One is simply incomplete without the other. They need each other to work properly. Let's break it down super simply. They just have two totally different but complementary jobs. Vitamin D3 is the calcium absorber. Its job is to get calcium into the body. Vitamin K2 is the calcium director. Its job is to tell that calcium where to go. You really need both for the whole system to work the way it's supposed to. Now, when you're looking at K2 supplements, you'll mostly see two forms, MK4 and MK7. And honestly, for supplementation, there's a clear winner. MK7 has a much longer half-life. That means it stays active in your body for up to 3 days, while MK4 is gone in just a few hours. This makes MK7 way more effective and a lot more convenient. And just when you thought we had all the players, there's one more crucial member of the team we have to talk about: magnesium. You can think of it as the power source, or the key in the ignition. The enzymes that your body needs to actually use and activate vitamin D, they all depend on magnesium. So if you're low in magnesium, your vitamin D supplement just isn't going to work as well. Okay, that was a lot of science. So what does this all mean for you? Let's turn all this information into a simple, smart strategy that you can actually use to make sure your supplements are working for you. Here it is, your 3-step action plan. First, always pair your D3 with K2, and you want to look for that superior MK7 form on the label. Second, make sure you're getting enough magnesium. And third, here's something you can do right now. Go grab your bottle of vitamin D, take a look at the label. Does it already have K2 in it? Now you're probably wondering, okay, how much should I take? Well, a common guideline you'll see in the research is to aim for about 50 to 100 micrograms of K2, again, the MK7 form, for every 1,000 to 2,000 IUs of D3 that you take. It's a really solid starting point for making sure you have the right balance. Let's let this sink in with this really powerful quote from Dr. Kate Blue, who is an expert in this field. It's a critical warning. Taking huge doses of vitamin D without its essential partner K2 isn't just a waste. It could actually be counterproductive and even potentially harmful. Which really just leaves us with one last question for you to think about. The whole reason we take supplements is to make ourselves healthier, right? So after everything we've just learned, maybe it's time to take a closer look at your routine and make sure your vitamins are truly working together for your health and not accidentally against it.
All right, quick reset. Blink twice, stretch your shoulders, and don't worry, your health lesson isn't over yet. We're switching gears now, but this next topic is just as important for your body. And if you care about staying healthy the smart way, make sure you're subscribed.
You know that feeling, right? We've all been there. Maybe you fell asleep on your arm, or you sat with your legs crossed for just a little too long. And then you get that weird, tingly, pins and needles sensation. It's something we all experience. But what is actually happening inside our bodies when it happens? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean when that feeling starts to stick around? Let's get into it. So yeah, why do our hands or feet feel like this? Well, that sensation, as common as it is really your body's way of sending you a signal. It's a little alert that the communication lines between your brain and your limbs have been, well, temporarily messed up. But what happens when that disruption isn't so temporary anymore? What if it becomes more frequent or more persistent? That's the real question we're going to unpack today. Okay, so this sensation actually has a medical name. It's called paresthesia.
Now, when it's just a temporary thing, it's usually totally harmless. But chronic or persistent paresthesia, that's a red flag. It's one of the most common signs of a condition called peripheral neuropathy, which is really just a broad term for damage to the nerves that are outside of your brain and spinal cord. And this, right here, is where our story really began.
All right, so let's get a really clear picture of what peripheral neuropathy actually feels like. Because, it's so much more than just a fleeting annoyance. We're talking about a whole spectrum of symptoms that can really impact a person's daily life.
Just look at the range of feelings here. It's not just pins and needles, is it? Someone might feel this gradual numbness creeping in, or a really sharp burning, even stabbing kind of pain. For others, it's a profound weakness in their hands and feet. This can all lead to not being able to feel heat or cold properly, and can even cause some serious problems with balance and just walking around. The key thing to remember is that all of these are signals that the nerves are struggling to do their job correctly.
So what is the root cause of this nerve damage? I mean, how do these vital communication lines in our body get compromised in the first place? To answer that, we've got to zoom way, way in, down to the microscopic level, and take a look at the very structure of our nerves, and a super important vitamin that keeps them healthy. Whoa. Okay, this chart looks pretty intense, right? But don't worry. The main point is actually super simple. See that little circle there labeled Vit B12? It's a critical player, what scientists call a cofactor in all these incredibly complex cycles that our bodies are running 24/7. The big takeaway here is that without enough B12, these essential processes start to break down, and one of the very first things to suffer is our nervous system. You know what? To make this even clearer, let's use an analogy that we can all instantly get. Just imagine your nerves are like the electrical wires running all through your house. For those wires to work right and to be safe, they need that plastic coating, right? That insulation? Well, in our body, that insulation has a name, the myelin sheath. And this is its job. The myelin sheath is this fatty, protective layer that makes sure the electrical signals flying from your brain get to where they're going at lightning speed without any glitches. It's the reason you can feel the texture of a piece of fabric or wiggle your toes the instant you decide to. It is absolutely essential for a healthy nervous system. And here it is. This is the direct connection we've been building to. Vitamin B12 is a key ingredient for building and maintaining that myelin sheath. So when you're deficient, your body literally can't produce enough of it, and the insulation you already have starts to wear down. That process is called demyelination. It's just like the plastic insulation being stripped away from that electrical wire. The nerve signals start to fizzle, they misfire, they short circuit, and that short circuit, that's what you feel as tingling, numbness, and pain. Okay, so now we know that a lack of B12 can cause these really serious issues. The next logical question has to be, why would someone be low on B12 in the first place? And it turns out it's not always as simple as just looking at what you eat. There are actually two very different ways you can end up deficient. It really boils down to two main buckets. On one side, you've got inadequate intake, which is pretty straightforward. It's just not getting enough B12 from your diet. But then you have this other side, impaired absorption. This is the tricky one. This is where a person can be eating plenty of B12-rich foods, but for all sorts of reasons, their body just can't pull it from their gut and get it into their bloodstream where it needs to be. And this means that even people who aren't vegetarian or vegan are at significant risk. So the intake side is pretty much what you'd expect. Vitamin B12 is found almost exclusively in animal products: meat, fish, eggs, dairy. So naturally, people on strict vegan or even some vegetarian diets are at a high risk if they aren't supplementing properly. This also goes for anyone who's malnourished, which can include some older adults who might have a poor appetite or a very limited diet. Now, this side of the equation, this is the one that so often gets overlooked. There are autoimmune conditions like pernicious anemia, where the body's own immune system attacks the very cells you need to absorb B12. Major surgeries like a gastric bypass can literally remove or bypass the part of your intestine where B12 is absorbed. And as you can see here, a lot of common GI diseases and even very widely used medications for things like diabetes and acid reflux can block B12 absorption over the long term. Even just getting older is a risk factor because our stomach acid levels tend to go down, making it harder to get B12 out of our food. Okay, so let's say you figure out you might need to supplement. You go to the health food store or the pharmacy, and you'll probably find it's not quite that simple. You're likely going to see two main forms of B12 on the shelf, something called methylcobalamin and another called cyanocobalamin. And it turns out there are some really important differences between them. Let's just break this down.
Methylcobalamin, that's the natural bioactive form. You can think of it as being plug and play for your body. It can use it right away, no extra steps. Cyanocobalamin, on the other hand, is synthetic. It's very stable and cheaper to make, but your body has to do extra work. It has to convert it into a form it can actually use, and for some people, that process just isn't very efficient. But here's the real kicker. Your body holds on to that natural form for longer, while the synthetic version tends to get flushed out in your urine much more quickly.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote from the journal Acta Scientific really sums it up perfectly. Research shows that our bodies can use methylcobalamin more efficiently. And get this, the amount you excrete is only about 1/3 of what you'd lose with a similar dose of the synthetic kind. That means more of it is staying in your cells, where it can do the important work of protecting your nerves.
So, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the symptoms, the underlying cause, and the potential solutions. So now, the question is, how do we put all of this great information together into a clear, actionable plan? Let's distill it all down into a simple path you can follow. Here it is, your 4-step guide. First step, simple. Pay attention to your body. Recognize the symptoms we talked about, that persistent tingling, numbness, or weakness. Second, take an honest look at your own personal risk factors. Are you a vegan, over 60, taking one of those medications? Third, and this one is absolutely key, talk to a healthcare professional. Ask them about getting tested, not just for your B12 levels in your blood, but also for other markers that give a much clearer picture of your status. And finally, fourth, if you and your doctor decide you need a supplement, you can have an informed conversation about which form might be best for your body's needs.
So that tingling in your toes or that numbness in your fingers, it might not just be some random annoyance from sitting funny. It could be a very real, very quiet alarm coming from your nervous system. So the only real question left is, are you listening?
And of course, please always remember that this information is for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not a substitute for professional medical advice. For any of your own personal health concerns, please always consult with your doctor or another qualified healthcare provider.
Thank you for your time. Subscribe for more health education. Like the video and share it to help others stay informed.